We're delaying the start of the meeting. We're waiting for a quorum.
And I have to figure out what my password is to the computer.
Do you not have audio on the mics?
I'm gonna buy a different computer.
I think that's working. I can hear it on this, like when I tap it, but I don't know if it's picking up
Test.
my voice.
Mine's working.
I don't know.
I just mentioned that we're just waiting to start the meeting until we have a quorum, so it's not really starting yet.
That's not good.
So proceed with your conversations.
What do we need? How loudly do I need to? It's all really staticky.
Styro. I think mine's pretty loud.
Snap test.
Should we test? Mine's working fine. You want to test yours, Steve?
Mine works.
Yes,
Mine
test.
working.
Yeah, you're working.
Okay.
Just couldn't tell if Steve's was working.
I can't get past
Is his
my-
working? Okay.
And this one's working now too.
As soon as we have
I think we're
one.
good.
Okay. And everything's being streamed. And Nelson, make sure we can hear Nelson.
Nelson's on here now.
Nelson, can you hear us? Can't hear us yet. Nelson, can you hear us? Or to the US?
Can you hear us, Nelson?
That is him. He's got some interference. So. Tell Nelson if you can let him know that he's muted. Is he talking?
I think he's trying.
So we can see you, Nelson. We cannot hear you. Can you give us a mic check, Nelson?
He's not hearing us. Can you hear us, Nelson? I think we can hear him if he talks. Yeah, I can call him. There's no way to chat on here.
Can you hear us, Nelson?
That works.
Testing, testing. Nelson, can you hear?
There's Lucille. Yes, we can hear you. Hey, yes, we can hear you, but I don't think you're hearing us, right?
Yeah, we're not hearing you.
Okay, okay, and maybe I'll take my phone over to Aaron and he can work with Rob because together they can probably figure it out. I'll just be in the way.
I can't get into my computer.
No.
No. I thought about going to the school because they're. And I'm locked out for 15 minutes. do my best with the screens.
Been a good game.
Yeah.
When we start the meeting, you may want to pull that mic a little bit closer just because it has a hard time picking it up. Perfect.
So now you've got audio. Okay, we'll give you an audio test.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3.
Hi, Lucille. Hi, Mary. I'm over here all alone.
Checking 1 2. Rob, you there? Are our mics on?
Yeah.
Like, are you picking that up back there, Paul?
I can hear you a little.
Yeah. Check, check. Can you hear us now?
But you can't hear us.
You can hear
Okay.
You can hear that. How are you doing, Steve?
Good fine.
Good. How's your wife? Still in school. Boy, she's loving it. Wow. I'm so proud of her. Tell her that. Yeah.
You didn't like that, Cedar? Is this like the one else here? Why'd you move to that?
Oh, just because I felt like I was. It's not going to settle down. I gotta get out of this. Hello?
Yeah, if you want to start.
Let's take a little bit. He's got some.
Just gotta be quiet. A few more minutes.
Injury funds before I start. We're supposed to be taking the country.
Proceed or wait? Should we proceed or wait?
I think we should proceed. Are we waiting for one?
Yeah, it's right at almost 20 minutes. So.
Isn't it?
You want me to start the recording?
Yeah, let's start. Welcome to our October board meeting. It is October 12th, 2022. Getting started a little bit late. We've been having some technical difficulties on getting Nelson on board. Hopefully those will be resolved soon. We have with us Lucille Cody, Nelson Yellowman, Mary Shumway, Steve Black. We do excuse Lori Mon today. We also have in attendance Superintendent Ron Nielsen, Business Administrator Tyrell Pemberton, and we welcome all of the other guests that we have with us today. The floor is open to approve the agenda.
Lucille Cody, motion to approve the agenda?
Second the motion.
Discussion.
Were there any suggested changes to any discussion items on the agenda? If not, that's my only question.
You don't have any yourself?
No,
Okay.
I was asking,
Oh.
based on conversations we had, and I can't pull up my agenda, so.
Yeah, that agenda's
But this
correct
is
right
current,
there.
okay.
I think so, yeah.
All right. So. Are we not going to talk about the election?
Steve asked, that we know.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. San Juan Quest update, Superintendent.
Thank you. Yes, I have some really good news, and this came recently. I received an email here in just the last few days, and I wanted to share this good news. So it is attached there, a letter from the state. Just a little background on this letter. Every year, the state issues a reading goal for our K-3 grades, and this goal might be focused. Is this goal focused on third grade, or is it K-1, 2?
Pathways goal, the 60% goal focuses on.
No, the 68%.
Yeah, that's pathways, so that's 1 through 3.
Yep, K-3. And we receive a goal that is given to us, and then if we meet that goal, we receive good news. And if we miss that goal, we receive additional support from the state. And so it's always good to get good news, and we've received good news. It says we've received the 2021-2022 Acadians reading data, and San Juan School District has met the goals during the internal action year and will not be entering the system of support during the 22-23 school year. I know we have a very intense effort in this district, from our support team that works in the schools to our administrative team to our teachers and our support staff. that are all playing a huge role in the work that's being done to help our little readers and our students. And so this is great news to see that those efforts are being successful, and I wanted to share that.
Thank you. Now going to the board discussion items. Number 1 is district leadership team update and portrait of a graduate. Superintendent.
Yeah, I'd just like to, the board is aware that we have a district leadership team, often referred to as the DLT. We have acronyms for everything, but I have been so impressed in the last few years of the work of the district leadership team. They have given us a focus that we have been missing for years, and they've given us the ability to go deeper into training our administrative team and working with our principals, and that work continues down to the school level in a way that we haven't seen in previous years, in my opinion. So the DLT has just been very critical in the steps we've been taking to improve. This year we've added representation from the teaching ranks, so there's teachers on our district leadership team, and teachers, of course, in all times also. As the principal goes back to the school and meets with faculties, we're able to gain teacher input, but it's been really helpful to just have teachers on the DLT this year. Julie and Christy pretty much facilitate the DLT, and they do needs assessment as to what will be the focus of the DLT. And one of the areas of focus that we want to share with you today is really being pushed and driven by state initiative, and that's a portrait of a graduate work. And they're going to update the board and the community and our stakeholders on where that work lies right now presently. And then from that, we'll be able to maybe have a little discussion about where that next steps could go with the portrait of a graduate. So I'm going to turn the time over then to the DLT with that introduction, and they have a little presentation to deliver. So who would like to go first? Thank you, Barbara. It's Barbara Silversmith, Principal, Bluff Elementary.
Good afternoon, board members and at this time, how we're going to start is I just want to let you know that in the journey of creating the quest model and the portrait of a graduate, it has caused us to relook at the current mission statement, which you'll see in slide 2 and so at this time, as a DLT, which consists, I'm not sure, Ron, if you had mentioned the DLT consists of principals, district leaders, and also this year we have teachers from one teacher from each region.
Yep.
And so we want to be able to, as a DLT, propose looking at that new statement, or the statement which is on slide 3, and just because we feel the importance of that aligning and tying in a lot better with the quest model and the portrait of a graduate, and also just taking a long time, I guess, just taking that journey and looking in creating the quest model and creating the portrait of a graduate has really caused us to look at this a lot closer. And so that's what we're proposing, and so I'll turn the time over to someone that's going to talk about the journey.
Thanks, Barbara.
So I get the privilege of talking a little about where we've been in the journey. On your slide, you can see it starts in 2018 and 19, but I'm going to propose it started much earlier than that. Years ago, when Superintendent Nelson first became superintendent, we went on a nice hike to a cave, and he proposed us all to work in a small admin team on determine what the why is for the district. Why are we here? Why do we come to work every day? Why should our students come to school every day? And can you show the screen? And from there, we started with our first variation of the quest model. I can flip it. They can't hear. Oh, there it is. Just for a visual. And I think there's been multiple variations from this, but to my knowledge,
Let's get him to, see if I can cut that speaker
Oh.
down.
All right.
Yeah, that didn't go over.
I think, okay. To my knowledge, this is variation 1 of the Quest model. From there was several changes. This was one of the last major changes, pre where we are now, which is up on the wall. Every single one of them has had a lot of input. You want to go back to the slide? From admin, from stakeholders. 18-19 was the first year that admin started talking about Porch of the Graduate part. The Quest model that I just showed started before that. In 2019, I really feel like we hit the ground running as an admin team, and we were ready as a district for a full launch of Porch of the Graduate. And then 2019, things slowed down drastically. So on the time thing, you'll see 2019, 2020, it wasn't a whole lot. That was the year of COVID that kind of hit pause. We came back 2020, 2022. We collected feedback again from all stakeholders, making sure that the competencies on the Porch of the Graduate, what we want our students to graduate with, what skills, were updated and relevant. And 2022, 2023, this year, DLT, leadership team, still meeting, giving input on what the Porch of the Graduate should look like. That is where we've been. Next slide is where we're going. I think that getting stakeholder feedback is going to continue to be a process. As we are preparing our graduates for life outside of high school, competencies are going to change. The skills that we want them to have are going to change with jobs, with demand. And so we're going to continue to get feedback from stakeholders, the DLT, the SLT, the SCC, I can't think of any other abbreviations, but district leadership team, school leadership team, school community councils, teachers. In August, the leadership team was able to launch to all the teachers this journey of what does the Porch, what do the competencies look like, what's the Quest model, and and we're going to just continue to get feedback and make the changes we need to make sure we're reaching the needs of our students.
Okay, so got as someone's portrait of the graduate, what does that really mean? And the portrait of the graduate is kind of like our North Star, and it's a strategic transformation of what we see, of what we want all of our graduates that graduate across our district, what we would want for them. And it's really being intentional and thinking deeper about the needs of our students and the needs of our district, and kind of weaving all that in together to make sure that we have skills, mindsets, and literacies for our students so that they can be successful, not just while they're in school with us, but when they leave our buildings and continue on with their lives. So we're thinking about college career readiness. We're also thinking about CTE pathways connections, and then we also want to really embrace in their heritage language connection as well. So this is what our portrait of the graduate looks like. And as you can see, a lot of thought has gone into it. And it's not just one person that has put this together. It's like a team of experts within our district that have really thought deeply and looked at what parents wanted, and this is what it came out to. So, and I think it's all integrated and weaved together, and it covers every component of highly effective instruction, and then also leadership and equity. So if you can see that, it's all woven in together. And I wish that screen was a little bit bigger, so I have to look this way, but forgive me for that. So the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that we've compiled together was based on all of those skill sets that we want for our students when they graduate from high school. And we would like to unite every team member, which is like every leader, every teacher, every parent, and all of our students in this effort. Okay, and this is one of my favorite parts in doing this work is really thinking about our heritage, our rich culture that is located within our district, but also that is seen within the regions that we live. And so we translated Unite to Empower into 3 languages. So the first one is White Mountain Ute and White Mesa, Nanamuk Nikai. So that's their way of saying Unite to Empower. And then the second translation is in Navajo, Tabe Ekenadzildo. So what that means is that students will have the skill set, the knowledge, and everything, all the tools that they need to make their own decisions and to have choice in their learning. And then also that's going to actually empower them to their career pathways as they leave the school. And then we have our Hispanic American or Mexican American population in Monticello. And I can't roll my R's, but I'll try. And put R. So those are like all of the ways to say Unite to Empower. And we surely hope that as a board that you will also unite with us and help us to continue this journey.
Greetings. Can we get the next slide, please? Oh, back one. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I was so worried about coming here to not waste your time on transitions that I didn't see that. So before COVID, one of the questions that were asked was the team, the school district asked all of the stakeholders, the parents, what are your hopes and dreams? Just one question, what are your hopes and dreams for your child or your children? And that was a foundational piece of feedback to give to the school district on what is the vision that everybody's seeing and how can we kind of shape the portrait of the graduate from there. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So out of hundreds of responses, here's just a sampling of what there was. And as Casey said, there's gonna continue to be more feedback elicited from the stakeholders, but if you take the time to look at this, you'll see it's not all about academics, it's so much more. And that's where the creation of, what are the skills and the knowledge and the attributes, that from that feedback came, we need to really kind of start categorizing that into more the knowledge piece, what is the skill piece, and what are the attributes pieces that are going to come from that. And that's how the development of that's how this new one was able to, that's why we highlighted those different elements. Thank you.
As mentioned a few times, we're going to continue to collect feedback. We feel like this is important to continue to adjust in order to target our students' needs. This QR code goes to a survey, and the questions are simply, do the portrait of the graduate competencies align with your hopes and dreams for your students? What stands out to you? And what are we missing? We feel like this will give us feedback to continue our work.
Hello, I'm one of the teachers. My name is Barkley Christensen that was selected to be on the DLT this year. And when we started talking about, the vision and mission statements, I looked at the competencies, and it made so much more sense with the competencies from the Portrait of a Graduate to connect with the current, well, not the current vision statement, the proposed mission statement. They just kind of all align. And as I looked at that as a teacher, if you can go to that slide just for a minute, Ryan's going to talk about the competencies, but as I looked at these knowledge, skills, and attitudes, as a teacher, with what I'm trying to relay to our students is not just academic mastery. I mean, all of these things are obviously a big deal with the knowledge and inside the classroom, but I want to teach them communication, critical thinking, collaboration, wellness skills, and then attitudes of hard work, resiliency, service, respect, honesty, and lifelong learning and positive growth. So I love the competencies that came with the Portrait of a Graduate, because the whole thing is how we want to, I mean, I see myself as a successful teacher if I can, build them after high school, if I can bridge that gap. And the competencies all align with the proposed mission statement. So I love where that's going. And if you can go back, to the last slide, which was mine, is this question is, do these competencies align with your hopes and dreams for your students? And I love that question for parents. And I really think these go along with the proposed mission statement a lot better. So thank you.
Hi. So I'm supposed to talk about competencies today, and one thing I want to point out is, if you think back to that portrait or the quest model, the original one that we came up with that Casey showed you, it didn't have any of the competencies listed on it. We didn't even think about them at the time. The new one that we have on the wall here has all these competencies that are in front of you listed on it, and we felt that's important that we added them to our quest model so that we could see them. The teachers know they're there, the students, the parents, all stakeholders, and we're teaching more to them to build them. As everyone before me mentioned, the big thought process behind this is, what skills do we want the students from San Juan School District to learn that will carry them on through their life, into jobs, into careers, into families, and so forth. And these are skills that go beyond mainly academics and so forth. So the competencies we broke down into 3 areas. There's knowledge, there's skills-based, and there are attitudes that we'd love to see our graduates have and portray through life. And we feel that these are the best ones to help them succeed at this time. And again, as the world keeps changing, this is a living document. The DLT will keep going back to it. We're going to keep looking at the data sources from the surveys, and this is an ever-changing thing. But for now, our competencies under knowledge include academic mastery of what's being taught to them, creativity and innovation, which is very, very important for success in the world today. Sorry, my contacts are a bit dry. We want our students to be civic-minded, financially minded, and economically literate so they can be successful in the world and in their lives moving forward. And then digital literacy is such a big portion of everything that happens in the world today. Under the skills, our students need to be good communicators. They need to have those good communication skills to be able to succeed. They need to be critical thinkers and have problem-solving abilities and problem-solving skills. They need to be able to work as a team and collaborate with those around them, be it at a workplace, in a family setting, wherever they are. And finally, wellness is really, really big here. They need to have the skills to take care of themselves, to take care of their families, to take care of loved ones around them, and so forth. And then our last big set we're looking at is our attitudes. So we like our students to be hard workers, to have resilience, and to be able to take responsibility for themselves in their lives moving forward, whatever job they choose to move on to, and so forth. They need to be lifelong learners and always have that personal growth and connections for their whole life. Finally, they need to be honesty. They need to have honesty, integrity, and respect for others around them. We'd really like our graduates to move forward being service-oriented and looking for ways that they can better the world around them. And then again, they need to have that respect for every aspect around them, for their jobs, for the people they meet, their families, everything, the world around them in general. Thank you.
So at this time, the DLT appreciates the time that you've given to us to be able to present to you the importance of looking at our current mission statement and the proposed mission statement. as we have taken this journey. So our proposal of taking the proposed mission statement and replacing the current mission statement is what we're asking for as we've taken this journey, due to the fact that it just, as we've heard, that it aligns better with the Quest model and the Portrait of a Graduate. So that's our proposal. Thank you.
You done?
Any questions?
Thank you very much for that presentation. A lot of work has gone into that, I can tell. Open up to discussion with the board.
So I have a question, just to clarify. So this QR code is available. The QR code, is it available all the time, like ongoing? Is it just something that parents can, anyway, can parents
Have access to it all
have
the time?
access and comment, or make, is it comments that they make through the QR code? And then if yes, how often are those looked at and then evaluated and implemented, possibly implemented?
So the survey was just created as part, sorry. The survey was just created recently as a part of the DLT process. Moving forward into taking this out to more stakeholders at this time. So it would be used to take our administrators back to their school leadership teams and their staff, and then it would all be available online all of the time. And we also to our chapter meetings. Our chapter focus is going to be sharing this as well at chapter houses, so we would get it out that way as well. And then it could be available on our websites ongoing. And then, you know, we haven't talked about how often we will come back and look at the data, but we will build that into our DLT process, because that will need to be looked at. We meet monthly, so I'm sure that will be a part of our regular agenda to touch base and look at those comments so that we can, and then adjustments will be made, you know, as needed. This has really been such an evolving process that literally it's taken a couple of years to create the Portrait of a Graduate and gather the stakeholder input along the way. And so we would probably look at changes maybe on an annual basis based on the feedback.
Okay, thank you.
I have some comments, but I'd like them to come at the end if there's any other questions from the board.
Go ahead.
Okay. Anyway, I would just to the board maybe give my strong recommendation along with the recommendation of the DLT. You know, it's exciting to me, and I think it's really important. I believe that we capitalize on this, that there is so much co-authoring going on in the work that's being done. It's being co-authored by so much input by so many stakeholders. Most of those are in our school system, but we are becoming more and more effective in getting feedback from our stakeholders, and we're getting more creative in how we're reaching out. And as Julie said, that process will only get stronger, and we on an annual basis will take that information in. And this is a living document, as the DLT member said. This will be ongoing because we have the opportunity to really be current and powerful and really have it affect the things in the school, have the ability for it to lead to change. As a speaker in a classroom spoke here today, I'd like to maybe have someone read this, the statement that is on the bottom. Would you read that for us, Julie? Would you step up, and do you have that on your computer where you could read the proposed mission statement?
Oh, yeah, I was looking at that one. It just
I'd like you to just listen to this mission statement and just listen. This mission statement, again, was crafted with so much input, and I think it really captures the cultures of our county and our school district. I think it captures the work of our district, and it captures, I think, the vision and even the spirit of our workers and our staff. And I think it comes out in this, and that's about what you could hope for as a mission statement, that it literally will share a connection. If it does, it's powerful. If it doesn't have a connection, it's just a words on the wall. And I'm not even going to speak to whether that over on the far side of this room is words on the wall, but I do know it's been up there a long time. Mary, you may have, do you know when, by chance, when that mission statement was adopted? I do not know. I think I remember seeing it on there as long as I've been coming in the boardroom.
It has been.
So this new proposed mission statement, I think, has come the way that you would hope, by being brought from the grassroots up and really being crafted with those visions and knowledge base and just the work of our staff. And listen to the words. I think they've done a marvelous job. So read that
Okay.
first, Julie.
San Juan School District's quest is to weave together critical knowledge, skills, and attitudes that will empower all students to lead meaningful lives, engage civically, and advocate for themselves and their communities. And one of the conversations that we had at our last DLT was around a quote that speaks to leadership, and leadership is the ability to make your vision become a reality. So it's a living, breathing, walking document that we can see evidence of every day. And that was a big part of our discussion in our day in June, that we spent the entire day together, literally probably 4 of those hours, working on the mission statement and really what we could perceive as the vision moving forward for San Juan School District.
You know, I just add that I was not in the room. Well, this mission statement, I think, was built over many meetings and many times, but I was not in the room directly when this proposed mission statement was crafted. It came to me and they said, we have something that we think really encompasses all this. And when I heard that statement, I really felt that they'd hit it on the nail. I mean, it had been a bullseye of the work we're doing and the work we're trying to accomplish. So I would be a strong advocate of adopting this. That's what we are asking for, is that we literally would take official action if the appropriate time is tonight, if the appropriate time is in the future, taking some steps, we're okay. But we would like to be very clear. We'd like to take whatever steps are necessary to propose that this become the official mission statement. I also want to add that the board that is the San Juan Quest model board that is on the wall over here, that is going to be, that we're starting to put those up in all schools presently. So if you get into schools in the next few weeks, you should see those in a very public, prominent place where the public, the stakeholders, the teachers, the staff, because that is not just a staff board document. We're hoping to build that around all stakeholders. This is our Quest model. So be aware that if the mission statement is adopted, it will be in the schools to be visually seen by stakeholders that come in those schools far more often than they come in the boardroom. So just be aware of that. And one last thing I know you have a question. You know, we haven't talked a lot about the motto, but we have kind of adopted a why. We called it the why more than the motto, but unite to empower. And there might be some logic also. You know, our motto has always been unite, educate, empower. And we're very close to that with what our staff has felt like is the why. They feel like we've got to come together to better empower our students to be successful in their journey, their life journey. So anyway, there might even be some logic in looking at both of those, but I'll quit there.
Mary?
Okay, so years ago, I was involved in developing a mission statement at Blanding Elementary. So I know and understand the process where you start and as it evolves throughout the day or days or, you know, weeks and months or whatever. Without having been part of that process in this, I just have to ask and wonder. So I would think our mission would be to educate and meet the standards of the state of Utah, meet and or exceed, teach, and so this can look like, or maybe does look like to me, a little bit of flowery, feel-good language that maybe isn't as straightforward as we're here to educate your children and make sure that the basic standards are met or that they're taught and learned. talked about in the past how something might be taught, but it isn't necessarily learned, and our job is to make sure it's learned. So to me, this does feel a little bit not as direct, like what is our mission statement is to teach children. And so it's not quite as direct, but again, I wasn't in the, I don't know, I wasn't part of that process that sees why all the wordsmithing and a better word and gets put in and changed and evolves. So we weave together critical knowledge. Like, I'm curious, like where weave came together, where we're weaving. Anyway, I know sometimes you have to be part of the process to feel like this is saying what it needs to say, but it almost sounds a little more wordy, and our basic, we collect tax dollars so that we can teach children and make sure they meet those standards that are required. So there's just my little bit different take on that is, where does it say that what we do every day is we teach children and we expect them to be we expect parents to be partners with them and have them at school ready to learn. That's kind of my mission as a school board member, is that I hope that parents they need to partner with us. And then our responsibility is to have teachers in the classroom, supportive administration, and teach them. So there's my little bit of two bits.
Okay. Any comments, Lisa?
I would just like to comment and say that there's a lot of, to the DLT team, there was a lot of critical thinking. There's a lot of hard work that was put into this, just listening, and it empowers me. And I think about all the kids that are in the foster programs and the kids that are having problems just being in the education field, as far as families with low income and stuff like that. It's just like, it really reflects back on them as well. And I would just like to thank the DLT for putting this together and make it really powerful. So, thank you.
Nelson? Thank you. Mary, I know what you're talking about not being very specific about, cutting to the chase, and this is really what we do. I think mission statements, in my mind, are supposed to be a little bit, on the feel-good, flowery side. And so, yeah, it does leave that out, but I think it's an effective mission statement personally. So we can discuss that further later. Let's see, it's almost 4. Let's try and get number 2 in before we go to the school report. Brenda Whitehorse.
Thank you, DLT.
Native Youth Grant.
Nana. Thank you again, San Juan School District honorary board members, for being here and asking me to present information about our Native Youth Community Project Grant. So I am really excited about this grant. And the excitement comes from deep within my heart and soul, because I see our Native youth across our district, and I see the needs that we have as a district, and trying to meet all those needs with the capacity that we can and the dollars that we have. Sometimes we don't necessarily have the means to do all the things that we want to do. And so this really provides a lot of opportunity for not only our schools, but our district to fund those needs. So you can go to the, so within this NYCP grant, these are the objectives that are listed in the grant, and it's very straightforward on what it covers. And I, as a principal and as a leader within the district, one of my main objectives is always to be very transparent in the programs that I oversee. So I always list the budget, the objectives, what the funding is going to be used for, and how it will strengthen our programs. And because this grant is approved and it's a federal grant from the Department of Education, there's certain grant criteria that we have to follow. And so because of that, we have to work really closely with the other grants that we already have and other funding sources that we already have at our school district, and then working very closely with our business administrator. So as you know, we also have the ACE grant, and the way that the Native Youth Community Project Grant works with the ACE grant is a lot of those activities are kind of like interconnected. So since we already have the ACE grant, it's a huge plus, because now we have other funding resources so that we can align our activities within the district and really think strategically on how we're going to utilize both funding sources. And so it's going to involve Trevor Olson, our Student Services Director, and Spencer Singer and myself to really coordinate that funding to make sure that it meets all of these objectives, and to make sure that our other budget objectives are met in the other programs that we have. So I hope that makes sense. So to strengthen one of the main objectives is to strengthen our existing heritage language program. And by doing that, one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to create a Native Youth Council. And this is part of the grant that really emphasizes on student leadership. So we have unity clubs in all of our river schools and then San Juan High School of really building youth leadership. So the Youth Council is going to be a district committee of students. And we're going to select students from our unity clubs that can really be part of that leadership role. So, and the reason why this is exciting is because it's going to give ownership and choice to our students in terms of how they want these services delivered in the schools. And not only that, but how they would like to learn the language and what types of activities they would like to see. So we've been doing a lot of hit and miss in the past, and it's nobody's fault. It's just the way that the funding sources kind of go, and we see a need and we try to fund it. But getting students involved in building youth leadership really gives a voice to students. And that's kind of like the power to this grant, because they're our future. And they're going to be the ones that we're going to plan for and build pathways for. And that's why all of the work that we did with our Portrait of the Graduate and Quest model is so important, so crucial, because it covers all of that. So it's also going to cover heritage language events. We have a K-6 Navajo Language Fair. We have a 712 Knowledge Bowl. And we're going to add on a new Native Youth Conference. And so once we start building our Native Youth Council, those students that go into that leadership role will help us plan those activities. So it's not just going to be me or the principal that will be planning, but it'll have student input. And they'll let us know, well, this is what we think is a good idea. Maybe we should ask these questions during our Knowledge Bowl, or maybe we should have a guest speaker, and this is who we recommend. So it's really giving our youth a voice, and it's also giving them choice. The other part of this is the Utah Bilingual Seal. In the past, we have had very limited students that have earned the Utah Bilingual Seal. And there's the complexities of it is because the Navajo Nation Seal is what our students were taking to pass that test. And the complexity of that test in terms of the level of fluency and knowledge of history, culture, and, really traditional ceremonies that students may not be aware of kind of puts them in, between a rock and a hard place of passing that test if they don't have those experiences. And if they don't take Navajo 1, Navajo 2, Navajo government. So we are going to develop our own Utah Bilingual Seal tests. And we're going to do it strategically to help them build oral language skills for very basic language that our students can communicate and talk in terms of having oral language conversations at home. So the way that we're going to build this is we're going to create a model using videos and instructional resources that will be provided to every student that wants to take the Utah Bilingual Seal test. And they will go through these modules, and it will be in the technology that we already have with Canvas. We'll build it in there. And so they'll pass these modules and eventually get to take the Bilingual Seal test for the Utah Seal. And the good thing about it is they can take it as many times as they want to. So we want to give all of our students an opportunity that has, oral language capacity in terms of speaking their Ute and their Navajo language to pass the Bilingual Seal test. Although the Utah Bilingual Seal will be in Navajo, we are also building in programs for Ute, and I'll talk about that a little later. So with White Mesa, the Ute language services that will be provided for them is we will hire a White Mesa education coordinator. We don't have one that exists right now. And then we'll also work on building a Ute language curriculum map based on the resources that they have, because they're using a language app. So using the resources that they already have and have access to, we can create a map that will allow us to monitor what apps we have and what programs we have with the Ute language. And that's where that Ute mobile dictionary language app is at the bottom. The grant very specifically says what we can purchase and what we can't purchase. So they'll go back to the objectives that we put in the grant, and that's how they're going to monitor us. So we can't do anything additional or add anything else. We just have to look at the objectives that we have. Okay. And the other part that's really exciting and that really resonates with me is increasing the numbers of quality American Indian and Alaska Native teachers within our San Juan School District. So are growing our own. And so we're gonna look at education pathways and teacher retention programs. We're gonna look at which students in our high schools, American Indian students and Alaska Native students, because the grant covers those two groups in terms of students who have an interest in teaching. And we would start a pathway for those students to look at which students we can perhaps provide a scholarship for to go into a teacher ed cohort. And then the other pathway is for paraprofessionals that we already have within our system that are Native American or Alaska Native that want to participate in a teacher ed cohort. So that's going to help our district because it's going to strengthen our teaching capacity and bringing in American Indian teachers and Alaska Native teachers into our schools. And then also the retention that we have for keeping those teachers. So it is included in the grant for bonuses for retention for heritage language teachers because it's difficult to recruit those teachers, but in growing our own, we can also meet that capacity as well. And then also bonuses for teachers to earn a bilingual endorsement. We do have other funding sources that get monitored in our district, like Title III and Title I. And they look at how many of our teachers have ELL endorsements, or TESOL endorsements, or ESL is all the same thing. And that's going to help improve our overall teacher cultural induction practices within our school district. I'll go to the budget. So I have included, I only have 10 minutes, I know, but I've included the budget so you can see it's really small and I probably need reading glasses to read it to you, but I have included that you can look at that at your own time. It's a 5-year grant and you can see the funds that are allocated for each category. And the part that pays for my salary is very minimal. I think it's just only like 20%. But a lot of it is for direct services and things that I've talked about. And it's all there, you can look at it. It's for up to 5 years, it will fund us $500,000 per year. And that over a period of 5 years adds up. And those are the numbers. So like our first year, $513,153.67. And I've included all of the measurable objectives. So we'll be working with an external evaluator. And these are the objectives that we'll closely monitor and plan for and work towards. And there's 11 of them, and I've included each one. Okay? And you can look at it at your own time. Also, we have already started the process of creating flyers to recruit students for our Native Youth Leadership Council. This is for 2022 and 2023. And I will make sure that every board member has a copy of this. And then this one is for Native American Teacher Pipeline. Awesome. And this is not NYCP related, but we are also 80% in terms of planning for our San Juan School District Heritage Language Conference. It will be our 29th annual. We'll have it at the USU Blending Campus. I hope you join us. Our theme is exploring STEM through student-centered learning. And then Adenejigi So STEM-related activities, our keynote speaker is going to be Dr. Henry Fowler. And we have presenters from both USU campus, and then we'll also have other presenters that will also focus on Navajo language and culture, along with STEM activities, science and math activities. Okay, so I'll make sure you all have this, and that concludes my presentation of the NYCP grant. And I'll probably be giving you more information about it as we continue. This is just our second week of the grant. The first week was just a week of celebration.
Thank you. Questions or discussion from the board? Go ahead.
I love your comment. I will certainly look into that and see. I don't think it is not written into the grant originally, and I don't know what the process would be of maybe trying to find a way to include it, but it's a great comment. Let us explore it.
Yes, it's not written into the grant, so it will not be able to cover the tuition for ed leadership candidates, unfortunately. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, let's move on to the Blanding Elementary report. Monique McDermott.
Hello again. Yate.
You're good.
So, I think that opens it up to questions from the board. She's in the hot seat here.
Okay, I don't have my stuff in front of me. Well, I'll start out. Well, I'm trying to remember one of the things I read because I don't have this up, but you said on there something about having all kids at or above. Yeah, 5%, no, a minimum, end of year. Okay, kids achieving, so on the part where K through third grade classes will have 60% or more of their students achieving at or above typical progress in early literacy skills and academic pathways assessment. What is typical progress?
Wait a minute. That's a different, that was last year's goal. Let me see. Oh, wait, are you talking, hold on.
Or I skipped
Okay, I'm
something
sorry.
else,
No.
too.
Okay, can you repeat that, please?
By the end of the year, kindergarten through third grade classes will have 60% or more of their students achieving at or above typical progress in early literacy and Acadians pathways assessments. So I was just curious about the typical progress, how that's measured, and if that goal or the goals are, this is saying by the end of the year. So what steps do you have in place to monitor that, going through the year to see if, instead of then, oh, whoops, didn't make it, or we, exceeded at the end, but just explain how that works.
Okay, we have, we've taken on a monumental project this year, which is for, we're moving away from a paraprofessional model to where we have an interventionist, a reading interventionist model. And what we're doing is we've adopted a state-approved, evidence-based program called 95% Group. And that should theoretically get about 95% of our students reading on grade level. And it's very, very specific and it's very targeted. It's got assessments that target them closely with very specific skills. And we have a weekly data collection schedule that we're utilizing, and that's done by classroom teachers and that's done by interventionists to be able to analyze that data every week, and then we do a serious deep dive with all of the data every 3 weeks. And what we're hoping and what we're seeing already is that there's a lot of fluidity with these groups, and that is more deliberate and intentional and effective than I've ever seen in all of my years as working as a reading coach way back in the day and as a principal way back in the day to now. Did that answer your question?
Yes, so that's, every week. So
every week.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. And then one more, maybe more difficult question is, what are you doing at Blanding Elementary that hopefully is working to deal with students who may not be prepared to be in the classroom behaviorally?
Okay, these are good questions. So one thing that we're doing is we have used some of our at-risk money to budget for a paraprofessional to come and support I need to back up. Our PBIS system has 3 tiers. So we have a new counselor this year, Alex Allen, and she and the PBIS team are focusing on the tier 1. Are you all familiar with the tier 1 when we say and the PBIS team? Do you know what I'm talking about there?
It's familiar
PBIS
language, but
it's a
no,
positive behavior intervention support system, or systems of support. So if you look at our Quest model, it'll be some of the multi-tiered systems. That's one of the things that we have, and we have 3 tiers. And tier 1 is, and you will hear tiers when you talk about behavior and academics. So tier 1 is if what you're doing is affecting an effective system will reach 80% of the kids. And then you need to go into tier 2 for those other 20, and then maybe there's going to be another 5-ish% of the kids that need a tier 3. So what my PBIS team, which consists of my counselor, my assistant principal, and a few other members, they're really focusing on tier 1. They're looking at the data with our office referral data and our minor consequences data, and they're saying, what are we doing and how can we beef up tier 1 to make sure we're getting 80%? Then we go into the tier 2. What's typically happened is it's tier 1 and then it goes straight to tier 3, and tier 3 is usually like an office intervention, and that's usually what the pathway has been. So we're really trying to focus on using that at-risk funds to be able to have another person in the room, in another room, working closely with our counselor and getting skills that she needs to help support kids in processing and learning how to self-regulate to be able to be in the classroom. So we have a referral process. We meet weekly every Wednesday morning to talk about specific kids that we see or not that we may be having problems with, or that are just presenting, that are just getting brought to our attention, and we come up with serious plans for them for supporting them. And we talk about all kinds of wraparound services and everything. So that is that hopefully answers your question.
It does. And are parents involved in?
Yeah, parents are involved. I mean, that's a huge part of it is, we always want to make sure that the parents are part of the partners because that is essential. And we know that we all want the best for the kids. And so we all have to work together for that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Lucille, would you like to ask a question?
Okay, on your challenges, like implementing school-wide initiatives takes a lot of time and commitment from everyone to do things thoroughly and have them be meaningful. Just touch base on some of your challenges.
Okay. All right. Well, two of the challenges that Mary has already brought up.
Yeah.
So, for example, what I'm really learning how to do as a leader of the school is think about all of the details that need to be thought of and all of the implementation processes and the logistics that need to be taken into account to adopt something like, let's say, the 95% group intervention. And we have to put them, and not only that, even before that, it takes time to be able to get people on board to understand the whys of what we need to do and really buy into the need. And so that in itself is a huge challenge. I've got a very big school with a lot of different strong personalities who are really amazing educators. Every single one of them have so many strengths, and they all have different ways of thinking of things. So just even in themselves, getting together on the same page and saying, yeah, this is something that we need to do. That's a challenge. Mm-hmm. And so that usually takes, sometimes that can even take up to a year to start working through, getting that commitment. And then just the logistics of implementing things, like what are the material logistics, the organization logistics, what are the moving the kids around logistics, it's all of that. And how are we going to be supporting the knowledge and the professional development along the way to be able to implement these things deeply and thoroughly is also another piece of logistic that we have to think about. So that's what I'm talking about with that. And I've really, really had to learn that it's okay to slow down and to take the chunks that you need to take to be able to dive deeply into what you need to do to be able to do something efficiently and effectively. And it also takes a lot of patience because you are going to mess up because we're humans and that's what we do. And we learn from our mistakes. So that's what I mean by that. And that you can place 95% group in there. You can place, a tier 2 behavior system model in there. You can plug anything in there. And I feel like it's all that.
Thank you. And thank you for all you do for the school.
Thank you.
It takes a lot, I know.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And we
You're welcome.
appreciate you.
Nelson, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah.
John?
One of the things what we saw last month in Monticello, we're seeing on your report as well as the personnel challenge. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a common theme cropping up, as at a district level. Are we addressing that? What's going on there?
Well, I'll jump in on that if you're asking district level.
Yeah,
I would say we are doing all that we can at this point. We are certainly trying to be as creative and strategic in recruiting and advertising and in using our personnel, that we've filled some spots by being very creative. The one thing that we are still looking at that I think but it's an issue across the board, and I don't know exactly the answer, but we are competing with salary. Money is always a very leading competitor in finding people in places. I know last night when we were at our regional board meeting, you heard Moab talk about readjusting their salary schedules to finally be filled. Well, they knew they were competing with outside businesses in those, and so they made some changes structurally that way, and they were reporting that had been successful to some degree, very positive. But that we are going to continue to look at. what we can do in those areas, but we are trying to be as strategic as we can. It is certainly a concern across the entire district, is staffing.
Thank you.
I can also speak to BES where we, I really listen to all of the people that are working for me and people who are frustrated and and if there's a lot of turnover, I look at what are our systems in place that might not be motivating them to stay. Because I know that we can't compete a lot financially, but if we can make it an environment that seems to support them better to where we're tapping into their strengths and they're feeling super proud of what they're doing and feeling like they're really making a difference, that's something that I feel like I can try to do as best as I can at the school.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for the report.
You're welcome.
And we'll move on the agenda.
Have a great day. Thank you very much for everything.
Thanks, Monique.
Number 3 on the agenda, Laura Palmer, LEA specific licenses.
This is I think the third year we've had to come in and request these. I think Aaron's pulling them up. But for those of you who might need a refresher, this is our LEA specific request the board has to approve. So what it is, for those who have been around for a while, it's the new system that replaced the authorizations we used to put in. It's essentially our underqualified staff. And this is just a temporary license or a temporary endorsement that basically helps us get our professional staff cost. Those that get the or have the temporary license are all enrolled in either our Apple program and will be applying for their associate license in the next little bit, or are enrolled in a university educator preparation program and are working towards their associate license there. The endorsements that we are requesting are people who are maybe have been asked to teach classes outside of their normal field right now. A lot of that is CTE. We are expanding our CTE offering. And with our small schools, that goes with just asking people to teach courses, the people that are probably the most qualified in the building. I have been working pretty closely with Gina Grover to make sure we're supporting the people that are getting the LA specific CTE endorsements to help them start taking the classwork and completing the requirements to get the professional endorsement on their license. So that's what this is. It's just temporary for professional staff costs while they work towards licensure.
Question.
And it is the responsibility of the board to approve this list. That's
Correct. When it went away from the authorizations, it went back onto the school districts to kind of manage this program on their own. So if our board approves it today, I will go put it into the Cactus system, and then the state board will approve it in their October board meeting.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, so clarification, to make it real basic, they can't teach unless we acknowledge and approve that we understand they're not fully qualified.
They're not considered highly qualified, and I do go put those numbers as required by the state rule on our website so that people are aware that we have people teaching without their license. But like I said, the people who actually are getting the LA specific license, I would say majority of them will be applying for their associate level license within the year. This is just a temporary thing so we get our funding that's due. This is due at the end of October.
Okay, and do we still have to send letters home to every parent?
There's not a letter, it's posted on the website.
Oh, okay.
So there is a link on the website that says this is the percentage of educators that are working in positions they are not highly qualified for.
Okay, which I hate the word, but I know what we have to do, but I understand that oftentimes we have people, just because they don't have the piece of paper, they're extremely qualified, really often, and so we'll jump through the hoops and help.
There have been some improvements in what you're mentioning. The state is moving to a lot of competency-based endorsements, where people who have maybe have some real life experience and things like that, they have an option of getting the endorsement without just doing university coursework. There's other routes for them now.
Oh, okay. That's great, because what we wonder, people who are effective, and there's lots of ways to get them there. So, okay, thank you.
Any other board discussion? Go ahead, Nelson.
Correct, and that's the standard. in the past 2 years, you could request up to 3, but this year they did make the change that if approved, they are all approved for 3 years. We do not have anyone on the list this year for heritage language. This is everyone who needs one for this school year.
So another clarification. So if when we approve these, then these specific people are approved for 3 years?
They're approved for
Okay.
3 years, so they have 3 years to meet the endorsement requirements or get licensed.
Okay.
There is also an option they could renew it if we feel the need to approve that later on, but 3 years is the normal amount.
Okay.
And if they don't get it by 3 years, then
That we have the option to allow them to renew it.
to renew it.
Mhm.
Indefinitely?
That's what it sounds like right now. I swear every year the licensing changes a little bit, but right now it sounds like
course,
that'll
it's
be
our-
up to the
yeah.
board.
It
Yeah,
is our choice.
it's up to the school district and board.
Okay. You mentioned that we manage it now as opposed to the state.
Mhm.
Okay.
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 Oh.
Go ahead.
If you don't agree with someone on the list, I get. I don't know. I guess in the past it's always been the entire list was approved. I guess if the board wanted to approve all but 1 or 2, then that would be at the board's discretion, and I wouldn't be able to put them in.
It might lead
To
to,
cactus.
it might be something that would lead to a closed session discussion, Nelson, if it falls upon, if you're getting into the areas of teacher performance or any of that, we'd go to a closed session and discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Number 4 is the Utah Food Bank contract.
Yes. Board, you've had this on your agenda now for this is probably the 4th time. Last month it was on the agenda. In your last month, you did take action to approve moving forward with a contract with the Utah Food Bank to sell approximately 1 acre of land for $250,000, and you directed Tyrell and myself to go take the steps necessary to work through and have a contract proposed. We did allow the food bank to craft that contract, and then they sent it to us. We didn't receive it until yesterday. We did allow legal counsel on our part to look at that contract, and so it's gone back and forth a little bit. And so what you have before you now is a contract that has gone back and forth between both, I think, legal teams of both the food bank and the district, and is being presented to you as a possible, if you approve this, then this would complete this land purchase deal that we've talked about. And we'd move forward as you see appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Questions or discussion from the board?
Yes, based on the fact that I don't know what time it was actually put onto our agenda today, a contract where we're selling land, and I haven't had time to thoroughly look over the contract, but looking at the first 2 pages just prior to coming to board meeting, I have several concerns or suggestions for changes, and so I would definitely like us to wait until we can thoroughly review the contract before we approve it. So essentially, I would like to have a chance to look it over. I hope all the other board members get professional advice if you want. some of the things, we will have some cost to this. So the way it's currently written, the district's not going to walk away with the amount of money that we're selling the land for. And again, this is just 2 pages that I've had a chance to look at. And I guess I'd like to ask each of you if you've had a chance to thoroughly look over the contract yet. Lucille. And so, anyway, I would like to suggest some changes to the contract from now until the next meeting so that we can take time to review it, make suggested changes, and then pass it, or, you know, or whatever the board chooses to do next meeting. And I don't feel completely prepared to even discuss it right now. I can discuss the first 2 pages, but that's all I have the ability to discuss right now.
Okay.
Question, I think we were on a timeline basis with the food bank as far as the money was concerned. Is that?
They have expressed, yes, that they have a timeline that they have to, to spend their financing. Their financing is based on a timeline.
Nelson, anything? Go ahead. Okay. Another comment, Mary? Go ahead.
Yeah, I realize there are some things that would maybe help from the first 2 pages that would help right now if, so the due diligence deadline in this is not specifically stated in due diligence like it is most contracts, but basically they can have right up until the closing deadline to back out of this deal, which is not common practice in purchase contracts. So I would like to see the due diligence time made more, be a more common format and have it a sooner time, but because they've got the $5,000 earnest money that typically the buyer loses if they back out of the contract at a later date after. And then also mineral rights, it is not common that sellers sell the mineral rights when they sell property. And this includes mineral rights. These are just some of the things I'm looking at it with in just a few minutes. Closing costs. We will have, this school district will have closing costs that we will pay the title company if we don't ask the sellers or the buyers to cover the seller's closing costs. And so I would like to suggest that we include our attorney fees for looking at the contract and our closing costs so that we don't have a cost to this transaction, that the cost is all the sellers, the buyers, I'm sorry, the buyers. Those are a few of my suggestions.
And that's where it might get a little bit tricky is if the board can give us, very clear, if everyone feels that way and that's the directive you want us to move, that's great. That would be completely clear and we will do that. But I just want to make sure, that's where it gets tricky a little bit for administration if we don't really know how the board as a board feels, on those kind of things. So I would ask that this is probably a good discussion to discuss this a little bit, and then in your motion at the end of the meeting to make sure you're clear on how you would like to direct us to move forward. I know closing costs, typically a buyer and a seller shares those to some degree, right?
So with closing costs, when there's a purchase transaction, a seller and buyer involved, seller has their own closing costs.
Yep.
buyer has their own closing
Exactly.
costs. And there's a little tiny portion aside from both of those that is all or commonly shared. So they share that very small
And
cost.
you're advocating for the seller's closing costs to be picked up by the buyer? Is that what you're advocating?
Yes. And
Which-
all closing costs at title with, well, and we don't pay property taxes. I'm gonna say with the exception of property taxes, but we don't pay property taxes. Because property taxes are included expense in closing costs, but that is not applicable in this situation. So I would say the all title fees are paid for by the buyer.
Yeah, and
Okay.
and
So,
then attorney fees would be the same?
That we would include our attorney fees, the cost to the district to sell this property that go to the
You know, and then
purchaser.
probably the other thing that would be a little bit, you know, the due diligence, you know, generally, when you put down earnest money, you are protecting the seller because you are locking up their property for an extended amount of time. You know, you're taking it off the market, very possibly, if you put it on contract. You know, we're really not in the selling mode. We weren't going to sell this land, and we're not in any way impacted, so the board just has to decide how they want to play that out as well. Mary is
Yeah.
suggesting that they would lose their earnest money, and if that's the way the board feels, then we just want to have clear direction on that. But we're certainly not your typical land transaction where we are going to be impacted by taking it off the market, because we didn't even have it on the market, nor do we really want it on the market. But, so
And
that's.
I agree with that. That's one of the points that's minimal in this situation. So that's less of a concern.
okay, so I think we need to give administration clear direction here, so start thinking of a clearly crafted motion for later on.
Okay, so, but I
Okay, go ahead, Nelson.
So Nelson, if I could respond to that, I'm a loan officer. I'm a licensed loan officer in the state of Utah, and I deal with purchase contracts every single day. And so I see what the common thing is to do and the best, you know, how to look out after your own assets. And so that's why I'm catching those things, is I do this for a living. And if any of us owned that property, we'd be negotiating in a different way than maybe this is. This is public property, and I always do my job in the sense of, if I owned this personally, how would I handle this situation? So that's why and that's just the first 2 pages. So I'm not, that's what I was gonna say, I'm not indicating that we still have not, all of us, looked at the whole contract. And so we're going to need some way to be able to do that moving between now and our next board meeting, because I do want to work with the food bank and do this in a timely manner, but we still have to be prudent and be responsible to the school district and the assets of the school district.
Did you have another comment, Mary?
No,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, number 5, capital plan development. Mr. Pemberton.
Yes, so you guys have attached, we finally received the project score sheet and the application for the House Bill 475 funding source. From our last meeting, there was already direction kind of given. So this is just more of an update for you all of what that looks like. We will be submitting the 3 applications that we talked about last month for those 3 different projects, which you have in your board agenda under the executive content there. So that's the intentions as of today, is to submit an application for those 3 separate projects. With a 2-to-1 matching grant is what we'd be requesting for in each of those. We believe that would give us an opportunity to complete each one of them if awarded those funds. And so with that, I mean, it's a process we have until November 1. It's not like it has to be a board approved application or anything like that. So you've already given the direction to submit the application. We'll do that administratively to work through that process and get the information on those applications that the state needs in order to evaluate them. And then they score them based off of the rubric that you can see on the project score sheet and ranking, based on how many LEAs throughout the state of Utah will submit an application for different projects. So that's kind of where we're at. For those, we've started that process. We're down to just having a couple of weeks to get those submitted by that November deadline. So any questions or comments regarding those 2 documents there?
So November 1st.
I would throw out to the board and just let you know that we could submit up to a 1-to-4 match. And as Tyrell and I have visited about it and looked at the criteria, we believe we'd be far more competitive with a higher probability of being funded at a 1-to-2 and still come out with a lot of support for these projects, even if it was just we were awarded 1. So anyway, we just want you to be aware that that's really being driven by a decision that we have made at that 1-to-2 rather than a 1-to-4. There are 13 districts, I believe, did you say, that qualified? So it is, and there's 50 million, and capital projects are way, you know the cost of them. So there's going to be a lot of competition for $50 million, and we felt like we wanted to, submit something that we felt would be competitive. So we felt 1-to-2 would be a better match, just so that you're informed and aware of where that came from.
And that's because that is one of the scoring criteria that they evaluate, is how much matching funds and LEAs
are willing to put in.
Willing to put up for that.
Questions or comments from the board?
I would like to add let's take questions at this point, then I'll add it.
Thank you for getting this prepared and ready to go and doing the research on this. And
Well, Tyrell's going to be the lead on putting these 3 applications together, so yeah, tell him thank you now, but he'll need a thank you a little later too, because this is going to be his hair's nice and brown now. Watch in 6 months, it's going to be gray or falling out.
Take a before and after picture.
So. Can I add, board, I want to again bring another, we've talked a lot of capital, and we've kind of hit kind of a snag in the road, and we think there's a way that we might propose to move forward that might be a win-win for now and for the future. We talked a little bit about Blanding Elementary being one of our high priority needs. And we've talked about, would that possibly be a remodel? Would that possibly be a rebuild? And then we've declared that that's a tough question to answer. And we need somebody very qualified. And we've reached out to local contractors. And the answer we've gotten from them is that is above our expertise. I don't think I want to even be qualified to state an opinion on that. So then we've reached out just to find out an estimate. We'd probably have to do more of an RPI, but an estimate of dollars that it would take to get a very thorough look at that building in all areas, from safety to electrical to plumbing to, basically you name it, and it was included. but the cost of that was pushing $80,000.
70.
You know, the estimate of that is in the $70,000 to $80,000, and so we didn't know that we really quickly wanted to pull the trigger on that or not. But as we've continued to hit this roadblock of not knowing how to go forward, I mean, I've come to the opinion and recommendation, and I think Tyrell supports this, that we probably, you know, this money is available this year, and it's being talked about being available again next year. There's still going to be a lot of money. So this fund, they call it help me with it, Tyrell.
I think it's the Rural School District Capital Project Fund is what
yeah.
the name is.
It's kind of a carryover fund that they move money over.
Oh, out of the
and I forget
economic stabilization.
Yes, anyway, they're talking about that having quite a bit of money in it again. So this $50 million could come. We would, if we had a better knowledge of what we were doing with BES, and we knew we were either going to rebuild or we were going to remodel, and if we would even possibly start some work with architectural work, and that would include stakeholder work, because anytime we get to that point, we start bringing in stakeholders. But I throw out the idea, because I think it at least is worth talking about. What if we made a decision to go forward far enough to make a decision of we're going to rebuild or we're going to remodel, which would probably mean we're going to spend $70,000 to $80,000 to answer that question. Then we actually go through this first phase of the process to work with our stakeholders just as if we knew that building was going to be built. But once we knew what we were doing, remodeling or rebuilding, we then could move to the next phase of getting public input, as we've done in the other recent buildings. And we could draw up plans for something that then could be seen concretely to our public. Then if this funding was made available again, we are now more competitive, because that is one of the criteria. Is it shovel ready? Are you ready to go to work on this? And we would be. We could say we're ready to turn the shovel right now. Plus, in our federal impact aid meeting, we hear that, and I don't know if this will ever materialize, but there is growing support and growing lobbying for some capital money to come down that avenue as well. And one of the criteria that they are looking at is, are you all ready to move forward on that project? I don't know if that's going to materialize. I'm not predicting it. I'm just saying, I think if we really believe that's at the top of the list, and we know somehow, some way in the next few years, we are going to either save or do something to find the money. Some of these big questions that until they're answered, we're just kind of stuck, not sure how to move forward with planning. We have the funds to move forward with some of that if the board saw that was a positive step. And I think it's worth at least discussing whether it is or not. So I throw it out to the board to at least think about that, and I'd love your thoughts on it. I mean, any thoughts?
Yeah, that your comments do really drive home the need to have a decision one way or another that's going to benefit us. And did you mention before that it was, would be an architectural firm like MHTN or somebody that would do that?
I think it would have to be, yes. That's where there are companies that do it, and maybe they're not all as expensive as the one bid we got just for an idea. We'd have to look at an RPI, yes. We might could find it done much cheaper, I don't know.
So to kind of add to that as well, so an architecture firm is the one that gave us the quote, and that's including several different types of engineers. So we'd be looking at electrical, structural, several different categories that they'd be looking at, as well as like the educational efficiency of the building and the uses there. So they've done several of these throughout the state, is what I gather, and so that quote that they received was pretty thorough and detailed about what they would be looking at for the building.
Okay, so I'm curious, and I would like to know if you can do the research on this, is the ones that they have done, did they all end up building, or did they all end up remodeling, or is it a mix? Can we find out that information?
We can ask the question. I don't know what the answer we'll get, but we can certainly
try.
Get the information of who they've worked for to do that work, and then call those districts and say, what did you end up, what was your decision? But have them give us references of who they've used or who they've contracted with to do that work, and contact them. And that might give us an idea of,
Are you
might
thinking?
give us an idea.
Yeah.
Nope. Lucille, any comments? I guess I'm getting more and more soft to the idea of getting something done that will answer those questions. Spending the money and getting it done, that's where I'm at. So, is that on the agenda as an action item today?
It
Or-
could be, yeah, we've got capital next steps, so if you
Okay.
wanted to make a motion in that area, it is on there as an action item.
Any other discussion before I move on? Yes.
So I can speak to that a little bit, Nelson. I visited with one other LEA who's been a large proponent of this fund, and they have done some of that work before even applying for these funds to be able to complete their project. They've worked with architectural firms to determine what portion of their building they are going to remodel and what portion they're going to do in addition to, and they've actually drawn up plans and have all of those things prepared, which I think was a big part of this advocacy for when they went to legislation to get the funds there was, hey, we've done these steps, we've taken some of these steps to get to where we know we're ready for what we want to do to move forward with this. And so they have done, I can't speak to say what exactly, their assessment looked like. I do know they have architectural plans for a remodel and an addition to some schools that they had in place before and what they will use to submit their application for funding for their projects. And that's just one specific LEA. I don't know the rest of them. I haven't talked with every other district, but that's just one example that I've done in just trying to understand where others are at.
Okay, number 6, White Horse High Spend Plan Superintendent.
Real quick, this is the second look at this. All it's adding on is the extra, the postseason play that was left off. You've seen it last month, the public's now, this is the second time for both the board and the public. It is on the consent agenda. So if you, for some reason, don't want to approve this plan, you'd want to make a motion to not include that. But if you just can approve the consent agenda, you're approving this revision to this spend plan. And that's really all I have on that one.
Okay, continue with 7, any discussion on that first? Okay, please continue with 7, White Horse
Now,
High.
number
Letter
7
Sports.
really was generated by a couple of new 150-mile forms that are not, there's a couple new trips. But in doing that, Mrs. Schaefer just submitted her winter sports schedules. So you'll see all the other schools come in probably next month in November, traditionally when those come in. And if you'd rather just approve the 150-mile additions to White Horse's sheet, you have it there. But if you want to, if you don't have any concerns with any of them, you can approve White Horses, and you'll have one less school next month to approve. So that Richfield trip on November 18th and 19th. I think if you scroll down, there's another one. Aaron, clear down. There's one in October. Keep going. Oh, October 14th, right there. Price Esports are going to Price on the 14th. So that's 228. So they're approving. You approved actually most of these trips on the list. She's just added 2 new ones. So if you had at least approved the 150-mile trip, that's what I'd really recommend. If you feel like you have no concern over her athletic sports schedules and you want to do all of them together, she has submitted them all together. So.
Discussion from the board. Let's move on to number 8, ESSER. Tyrell.
Yeah, I'll get this started. Superintendent just asked that I go over where we have spent some of these funds that we've received through the CARES Act and our ESSER funding. So you have under your executive content just kind of breakdown of the budget sheet that the business office, Monica and Jennifer, have done a really good job of helping with.
Can I just add right there that you have it under executive because there's names on it. Other than that, this would be a public document, but we didn't know if, just felt uncomfortable about names of employees and all of that, so.
I think it has to be a public document.
So-
You can't, it's like salaries and anything else, isn't it? It has to be public.
Well,
You can't-
if anyone wants to do,
Yes.
ask a question, yes, but I don't know that we're required to put it under public
Anytime
in
it
every
has
time.
anything to do with the budget and that goes into our budget, I believe it has to be public. It can't be, I think we're violating open meeting laws by, no?
I don't think. And of course, any part of our budget is grammable. They could have access to it. Everything's transparent, but generally we are sensitive to names and the information that goes out unless it's asked for in a certain manner. But right to know is out there and those kind of things. I mean, it's not. But anyway.
Sorry, we probably should check on that for
Yeah,
future
we can check it.
reference. But I think that has to be public.
Anyways, that's kind of where you can just kind of see a breakdown of the way the money has been spent. We spent a significant portion of those dollars on learning loss, in hiring personnel and other services to help us with addressing the learning loss from the pandemic. There's funds that have been spent on mental health services through the University of Utah, and social work services. We've spent funds on educational technology, audio enhancement in the classroom. We have spent funds on the RRLA project through these ESSER funds to help provide internet service for our river region. So that's just kind of a breakdown of how the dollars have been spent since I think it was a year ago in September that we approved the original application for the ARP ESSER funds. So they're just kind of a breakdown of the two different, our ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 funding sources. ESSER 2 funds, just for the board's information, those funds will expire September of 2023. So we have one more year with those funds. And then the ARP ESSER, American Rescue Plan, those funds will expire 2024 of September, as they are federal grant funding that we've received. So that's just a quick breakdown and brief overview of what we have spent those dollars on at this point. We just felt it would be important to bring that back to the board and give you an update of where those dollars are being spent, and open that up to any questions from the board if you had any on those.
Discussion from the board.
I don't think I have any.
Go ahead, Nelson.
I would like to add some if
Go
we're at
ahead.
a place. So I want to point out the carryover amounts or the unexpended amounts right now. So if you, Tyrell, why don't you help me with those for ESSER 2? What do we have right now that still shows as unencumbered?
Yeah, so at the bottom, again, keep in mind these are just these spreadsheets are what we are using to help us keep track of and the ideas for spending and what we're utilizing those funds on. So right now, and it is just our budget working document, in our ESSER 2 funds, we have an unbudgeted amount right now that hasn't been specifically allocated for a purpose of just under $200,000. And in our ESSER funding, in our ARP ESSER funding, we have $877,000 that is currently unbudgeted, that we are still working. So to give you a little bit of background as well, for these funds, because they're, combined, we're over $8 million in these ESSER funds. We do meet every, I think it's 6 weeks that we meet as a committee, between several of the different administration here in the district, to bring together ideas and what we're seeing at the school levels, and what things we can do to help support. So we meet regularly to go over that. And so these unbudgeted funds are met and discussed by the committee every 6 weeks to discuss, hey, where are we at with spending? What do we need to do moving forward to spend these funds and help our students through the pandemic? That's what they're there for.
So you can see that we have a variety of needs, and we've spent it in a variety of ways. I think we've covered mental health. We've covered, we've helped in our areas of intervention, helping at the school level. We've helped before and after school. We've helped with nurses. We've done a tremendous amount. We've implemented new programs. Anyway, I just want you to be aware that we've looked at all of our needs and we're trying to address those. We still have quite a bit of money that is still left unencumbered. And we still have a lot of learning loss work going on in our schools. And our staffs will continue to really need to be intentional and focused in those efforts. So we've looked at how best to move forward with spending that money that is still unencumbered. And working with the committee that Tyrell referred to, that we meet every 6 months with our district administration staff, we have a recommendation coming out of that committee, and I make this recommendation that we look again at employee stipend focused on the extra work that they still need to give, the extra intention that they need to give to help with learning loss. That would help. That would definitely help encumber some of these carryover funds. We're at a place where if you try to hire more people, we don't have a deep pool. We've saturated that. If you try to implement new programs, new things, we are at an exhausted level there as well. We really cannot bring in anything new. Our teachers, our staff. So in my mind, what we need to do is the things we have in place, we need to continue to put forth a very strong effort, intentionally focused, and focused on student learning. So I would like to advocate for that we it would be the end of the November payroll, that we pay out an additional stipend similar to what we did last May. Was it last May that we paid it out?
It was May.
Anyway, similar to that. There's money there. We know it qualifies. We have we've approved this through the state. They've allowed us. They've let us know that this is a qualifying expenditure, and I think it would go a long ways with our staff to continue. And I think the money is there, and I think we need the highest of effort we can get out of all of our employees across the board to continue to focus on learning loss, the impact that we have felt through the pandemic. So I want that to be part of this discussion. There is a motion at the bottom. The discussions we've had in the past have left me kind of as the superintendent believing that if it's within the budget, superintendent, you have some authority to do that. But I also don't want to ever appear to be not transparent and not upfront. So, I'll be honest, if I left this meeting with the same feeling of it's within the budget, superintendent, that's within your realm of authority, then I would move forward with this recommendation. But I'm being very transparent and accepting any recommendation the board would like to give me. So.
I have a question. Is there a way to, and I don't remember what it's called in the in the spring when we have gone to classrooms to present the bonus to teachers who have met the criteria. And I know that's limited to certain teachers, but in general for our employees, is there a way to quantify, you know, some people have a whole lot more on their plate because of the learning loss, and some people may not have any. So are you suggesting that because I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, I'm honestly asking, are you suggesting that there's learning loss and people are working extra hard so everybody in the whole district gets a bonus? Or people who are genuinely, personally impacted get a stipend because of the extra work? I don't know if it's extra work, but it's stressful work. And it's probably extra too, that they're putting extra hours in. Some are, some aren't. What are
Yeah, I can speak
what
to
are
that.
you genuinely?
You know, when we've looked at this very deeply, we have a hard time finding any area of our district that hasn't been very directly impacted by the pandemic. You know, we went through bus drivers to cooks to teachers to support staff to administration, even district administration, the business office, the transportation, the maintenance. We could literally see how every one of those were asked to pick up additional responsibilities, and to have an intentional focus in a certain area brought on by the pandemic. So it was really hard to start kind of trying to quantify, was it 50% more than this one or 60% more? And so in the end, we felt like it's a direct impact in all areas, and we've tried to treat everyone the same basically, because we couldn't quantify, you know, exactly, did some have it more than others? Possibly, but we couldn't find any that didn't have any.
So if we call it learning loss, though, I mean,
I would say
lunch
learning loss is
people-
one element of it.
Yeah, I throw that out, but I should, yeah, that's a good one.
because, yeah, I'm saying the teachers in the classroom, there's direct support staff right in the classroom. That's clear that they are dealing with behavior issues and learning loss. But other people in the district aren't specifically that I can, you know, that I can see directly dealing with that as much. So if that's one element, but if you're suggesting a bonus because everybody comes to work and they work hard,
Stipend.
then or a stipend, then that's more clear to me than everyone gets one for learning loss, just a stipend because we have the money and we appreciate employees and, okay. Thank you.
Because a lot of it has to do with student safety as well. You know, your custodians and your bus driver. I mean, our bus drivers have had, specifically in our river region as well, have had to do additional cleaning and spraying on the buses that
Still
we're
are.
never a part of.
Yep.
Custodians have had to do more work. And so really it's student safety, it's learning loss, and all of this has been brought on by the pandemic. And so that's kind of where this comes from. And that's how when we vetted it through the state of Utah, that's what we went with. And what they told us too is that when we looked at it across the board, there was not one employee that could say they weren't impacted by the pandemic. And that's not to say that everyone was impacted the same amount,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
we were all impacted by it.
Cooks.
Yes, please. Okay. Let's move on to number.
Well, I have a suggestion. I see Julie sitting here and sitting here and sitting here, and I'm just wondering, can we?
I'm gonna stay for our presentation.
Oh, okay.
Employees, so
Okay.
thank you.
Never mind.
Either way works for me.
Okay, I was going to go on to number 9, land trust training.
Oh. Yeah, okay.
That's next on the agenda.
All right, well, thank you for the opportunity to bring to you our annual school land trust training for this year. So luckily for all of us, there haven't been significant changes in legislation this year, which to the school land trust department. So a lot of this will be review, and the document that you have is very similar to last year. I've just updated a few things that have come in, but put many links on there that I will refer to, but we will not go through each link tonight. So I will pull out the important parts of those. The one document that I am going to refer to will be that very first one, leading school community councils and the responsibilities of the local school boards. So we will go through that document, and the other things I will just tie in for you. I want to just draw your attention first. Will you just flip right back to this one? You're thinking with me right ahead. That's perfect. I just want to draw your attention to that instructional cycle on the first document. Right there, perfect. So the blue instructional cycle there. As we have a responsibility as the board to review school land trust plans each year, this is a very important cycle that we keep in mind, that as school community councils are developing their plans, they are thinking through this, and this is an annual cycle that they're going through. They're identifying their needs that are data-based, then they're moving into their planning, then they implement, then they monitor for progress, and that's that measurement piece, and then they analyze and review and look at their final reports, and then we start that whole process over again. So at this point, each one of them have their elections complete, they're into their first meetings, and they're starting that very initial process of training their councils. So they are working diligently to train their councils as a whole on the processes of being a council member, as well as being very transparent with budgets and programs and systems and the organizations within the schools, so that the councils can be a part of the work. And then they will move into data sharing, and then they will move into, in December, January, they start talking about their new plans. So it seems super early, but they really have to start having those conversations then. So with that in mind, I'd like to look at that first link there, that document you had pulled up, Aaron, and go through. There's kind of 3 things that I'd like to touch on tonight. The first one are these responsibilities of the board. So we'll go through each one of these. And then I'd like to share with you the timelines and the proposed dates that we would like to share with you to get your approval on tonight for setting the dates within the school land trust system for principals. And then I wanted to show you just a couple of things on the website. I don't know how familiar you are with the school land trust website, but I just wanted to show you a couple quick things so that you could have those at your fingertips. So as we go to this document, a couple of really important things is that as we start to look at plans and they come in probably April, hopefully April, then we will be wanting to make sure that that every goal has at least one, every plan has at least one academic goal. That's one of the very first things that you're looking for. And in order to simplify this process and really stay focused, we have worked diligently with the schools to really look at their highest priority needs that are based on data and align those needs need to be aligned with the district goals and their 90-day plan goals. So that's something as a board member that you can be thinking about as those plans come in. Each one of their goals need to be measurable, student focused, and academic. So they really follow that SMART goal model of being very specific, being very measurable, being very attainable, relevant, and timely. Each goal needs to address three things. So as we look at the plans, these are some of the things that Christy and I work with the schools on as well. But it needs to be their greatest academic need. It needs to be something that is improving excellence at the school. And it needs to be something that they're implementing a part of their TSSA plan. So that's their Teacher-Student Success, that's the Teacher-Student Success Act plan for each school. So that is filtered down through the state to the district, and then schools get an allowance for their TSSA plans. So this is a new piece over the last couple of years that they have been integrating their goals in their school land trust plans with their TSSA plan. So when you see that posted on their websites, their TSSA plan and their school land trust plan, that's the reason, is they really are to start to braid those and to support one another. Their goals need to be action oriented based on their data, and they also have to have in there how they're going to measure their progress. So that's something that that we will ensure happens in the process of building that plan. Sometimes you will see a behavioral intervention that is a part of an academic goal, and that is a good thing, and that is an okay thing. It used to be that there was a behavioral piece and that was separate, and they could only spend up to $7,000 for a behavioral goal. That no longer exists. So it is now a behavioral goal can be a part of an academic goal, but it must tie to an academic goal. So as an example of that, if they want to hire a paraeducator to support behavior in the classroom that will in turn support reading outcomes or math outcomes or something like that, then that's an okay way to tie in a behavioral intervention piece. The action steps should be mirrored in our expenditure list. So everything that they put in their plans, in their action steps, must be mirrored in their expenditures. And that's specific, but I mean, it's general. We try to get them as specific as they can, but there are some activities where they're doing an incentive activity or something that they don't know exactly all of the details, and so it will be mirrored as supplies, but we know. So even last year, on one of our plans for ARL, we did go back and add very specific, like STEM supplies and very specific things for that intervention, and the state is requiring that we look at that a little more carefully. So a couple of things that you'll hear about that are kind of new over the last couple of years, but we haven't spent a lot of time in our training on, are that the components of the academic goal really should incorporate they can incorporate digital citizenship and safety principles. So that is super broad, but you might be seeing more of that come into play as years move forward. As far as digital citizenship, UEN has a ton of opportunities for principals as resources. So things like social media opportunities, information on how to use social media properly, blended learning strategies for teachers. They literally have just lists of things that could support those goals. And then as far as safety, there are really 4 areas that we're training principals in to look at. They should be talking about digital citizenship in their school land trust meetings and asking for input, as well as safety. So those are input on their safety plans. Those 2 things should be happening. And safety really has 4 areas. It's pretty big, but we're trying to tackle it. So there's transportation, there's physical safety, their school climate, and mental health. So within those 4 areas, they're having conversations with their councils about how can we better support our schools in those areas, which is a really healthy discussion. So you'll see some of those things possibly become braided into their goals. All expenditures must be accounted for in every goal. And just as a reminder, all expenditures should fall under an academic goal. So it should be ELA, math, science, or for high school, we add increased graduation rates. They can have a goal related to increased graduation rates or promoting college and career readiness. The things that we should not be seeing come to you for approval are any things related to construction or maintenance or furniture or any overhead, security, or athletics. One thing to note that you'll remember from last year is the incentive amount, $2 per student. They clarified on that this last year that no longer is it just $2 per incentivized student for the project. It's $2 per, they can allocate up to $2 per student for the enrollment of the school. So that's something, just a little clarification there. And then finally, as you look at plans as a board, we have to ensure that the signature page is completed, and that is on the website. So generally, we haven't included those. Christy and I have just ensured that those are done, and they're on the website. They're electronic, so all of the council members sign them electronically, and they send them back. And we just made sure that that happens. If you would prefer that we, have a copy of those and bring those to you, we absolutely could. We just have to ensure that they're signed. So, any questions about any of that part? You're just pros. You're just pros at this. Okay.
We're glad you're the pro at this.
Well, you're great. So, let me go now then back to our original sheet. And I just would like to go over the timelines and dates just so that you have those at your fingertips. So the first deadline coming up for School Land Trust is October 20th. We set a district date for our administrators of October 1st so that we could start reviewing everything that they've got updated on their websites. So October 20th, they must have, and I've listed all of these things on there for you, but they've got to have their council membership, their council contact information, updated rules of order, their election information, and their meeting schedules, and then their previous minutes for the prior year as well. Mm-hmm. So all of those things you should see accessible on their websites by October 20th. And then the next deadline will be January 15th, and the state reports for their final report that shows how their funding was spent and implemented, that becomes available on that date. So we have an opportunity to propose to you as a board that we set 2 dates. One, that their final report is due, so the date that you want them due so that you can review them, because we do have an obligation for you to review and approve those final reports, and that's the document we share with you that has, here's their what their goals were, and here's how much they spent from last year. So the proposed date that we would like to share with you is February 1st, that those would be due. And then the next date that we would need board approval on is March 31st, and that would be the date that our school land trust plans would be due, that all schools would have them due so that they are ready to bring to you in April board meeting, and we could review them during board meeting in April. And then in order to be funded with the July fiscal year, they must be to the state by May 15th. So that gives us March to have them completed, April to bring them to you. If we need any revisions or anything isn't approved, we could take it back, bring it in May real quick, and then still get it to the state. So there's that letter that's linked there, and it's also on the action items tonight to approve those dates. Those are our proposed dates for our School Land Trust. And then I just, do I have just 1 minute to show you the website? Is that okay? Just real quick. So Erin's gonna pull up the schools.utah.gov, And this link, show them where the link is real quick, Aaron. Will you just scroll? Yep, it's this second link right here that he's going to, just if you want access to it easy. So if you'll just go to home, up there, those 3 lines. Yep. So, and then scroll down. So this is your home page for School Land Trust. All of these options on the right-hand side, you will find more training than you even want, but there's plenty of training there. They have done tons of YouTube videos for schools and principals and councils to be able to use in training their councils. And then all of the timelines, everything that are pertinent to you, I've linked from the website to here. So if you go to this login link, Aaron, right there on the right, and you're not actually going to log in. This is a public report site, but I want you to be able to know where you can access previous years or current year's plans, as well as any of the information that relates to their plan. So if you go here and then you just go to public reports, so you don't log in, you just do public reports. And then you can sort it by, go to the very top, Aaron, and you can just put LEA, district LEA, just do that drop down right there, yep. And then we just go to San Juan. And then scroll down, and you can click on any school, so open ARL. And it'll give you the option to select the year. So you can see previous year's plans. If that's of interest to you when you're looking at a current year plan, you might want to see what they've previously done. And so that's there, or you can see the current year. So when you get in here, you can click on the current year school plan. So yeah, you can just stay there and then go down to the bottom on year. You can see open that up and see their current plan. And I wanted to show you at the bottom, there's a place where we communicate when we're working on the plans with the state for approval. So after they come to you for board approval, they go to the state for approval. And so this is our communication link between us and the state. So this is an example of the one I gave you where we came back and added makerspace projects, rocket launching, ceramics, and all of those details to the goal. So that's where that is. So there's the plan and that, and then if you'll just go back out of there, Aaron, the only other thing I think that's important there for you to really know is there, I scroll down. I'll go to ARL again, it's fine. Right there for council members. If you want to know who their council members are, that's a place to find it. They're also posted on each school's website. All right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Number 10, enrollment.
Yes, number 10 is, we see this most every year in October after our October enrollment, and it's just for the board's information of seeing the district and seeing if there's, I want to make sure I pull it up. It gives you a good idea of any real extreme swings or patterns or drops or increases, because those are all tied to funding. This enrollment, actually average daily membership, but our enrollment drives average daily membership. So this is very key. As I look at this, I see for the most part, last year we did drop a little bit. We're one student up from that drop this year. We lost a few kids. I don't know if that was pandemic related or what, but sometimes you just never quite know. And then if you break it down and go to the next slide, you see the schools more. And well, I guess even on that first slide, you can see the schools down along the side there. But maybe interesting to me that Navajo Mountain is down a little bit to 22 students this year, but I know they graduated 11 last year, and then they only brought in 6. When you're a very small school, those swings can be very dramatic, and so you're seeing that in them. But anyway, if there's any questions or concerns, I just wanted the board to have this documented, as you always have about this time of the year, to kind of get an idea if there was any major funding concerns that are going to come out of this. I think we're about where we've been. There's not a huge drop. There's no increase. There's really no drop. So we're kind of maintaining.
Discussion on that.
No, we do not need closed session. So we're probably ready to.
Okay, let's adjourn until 6 o'clock,
I know
unless,
I'm always
there's dinner prepared in here, so.
okay.
Aaron, I have a big favor. I have not been connected to the internet this whole time. I've just, and it's been fine because you've been the screen, we don't need a lot of, but I'm on this Mac and I know the district doesn't support Mac, but I don't know what the username and password is to connect to the Wi-Fi. Is there?
And gone to
It's
the
like,
game.
I saw Kim Schaefer in the background. I'm like, is he out there? Is that one?
will be to Anna Hart, and Mary will present that, and following that, I will present the award to Jesse Grover.
Make that long walk.
All right, so Anna was nominated by Monique McDermott, and this is what she says. Anna has been instrumental in overseeing the implementation of our brand new intervention program and model. She has created the systems for material management, training, and guidance for the interventionists, as well as the data management component. Her vision and knowledge has been invaluable to BES. Thanks, Anna.
Guys,
Thank you for
Thank you for everything you.
Thank you, Anna, for everything you do at Platinum Elementary.
years.
Hey,
We're lucky to have you.
Oh, thanks.
You're very lucky. Okay.
Ready to go.
Jesse, come on up here.
Yes, barely.
You were hopping.
Okay, Jesse was nominated by Ryan Nilsson, the principal of San Juan High. He says Jesse has taken on the role of San Juan High School Student Council Advisor. He has done an amazing job of leading his students to produce a more inclusive school. During homecoming week, his student council had activities that included every student at San Juan High. He has been an amazing addition to the San Juan High team. He leads by example, and students have excelled under his direction. He is a great example of what it takes to be a Bronco. Congratulations.
Thanks, Jesse.
Yeah, I do too. I see them walk around the district. I see them on their desks. I see them on the wall. It's pretty cool.
Nice stuff.
Okay, citizens' comments. We have a few that were submitted online. Eva will now read those.
Okay, the first comment is from Lyrell, a student at Whitehorse High School. Good morning, I am a student here at Whitehorse High School. It has been brought to my attention that masks are becoming a huge part of our lives. For someone who has asthma and finds masks uncomfortable, I think that masks should be optional for those who are vaccinated and show no signs of any sickness symptoms. This idea is generated from me and others who share the same opinion. If you can in any way help me and others who can't speak for themselves by making masks optional, that would create a stable understanding of masks in our school. I appreciate your time and hope you can take this into consideration. The next comment is from Isaiah Bob, a stakeholder from the Whitehorse High School area. It states, please, San Juan School District Board of Education, make masks optional at Whitehorse High School as soon as possible. This comment was submitted by email by Reed Sifford. He states, San Juan School District Board, my name is Reed Sifford. I am a teacher of the visually impaired for the San Juan and Grand County employed through the Utah School for the Deaf and Blind. I come to Whitehorse High School 4 times a week for about 2 to 3 hours each day and teach Braille to a student there. I've been coming to Montezuma Creek schools every week for the past 8 years. I've talked to Kim Schaefer, the principal, and she gave me your email to discuss the mask mandate. I'm requesting that the school board allows San Juan schools to lower the mask mandate and make it one's personal choice in accordance with state and federal law. We are moving into year 3 of still having to wear masks at Whitehorse High School, and I don't see an end in the near future. Are we going to have to wear masks for 5 more years or 10? I think that the mandatory requirement to wear masks does not create safety, but the illusion of safety. I watch every day as the students have to wear their masks in the hall as they line up for lunch, but right as they sit down in the lunchroom, they take their masks off for 30 minutes and are exposed to each other for 30 minutes as they eat and talk. When they leave, they put their masks on. It's as if we pretend they didn't just take their masks off for 30 minutes. I think it's ridiculous and should be seen as such. It is beyond time to return to normalcy, even though masks are required by the Navajo Nation. We can follow the state and federal mandate and make it voluntary instead of mandatory. Please help. It is for the benefit of the students and the teachers that the long overdue mandatory requirements be rescinded. And he submitted contact information for response. And the last one is from Waylon Toledo, stakeholder from Whitehorse High School area as well. He states, please, San Juan School Board of Education, make masks optional at Whitehorse High School as soon as possible. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Superintendent, did you want to make any comment at this point, or?
No, other than those that have a contact information and have checked that box, I will respond to them. I can, just respond openly now to anyone listening that we have tried to follow the Navajo Nation's guidelines since the beginning of the pandemic. And those are still the expected guidelines, is still a mask mandate in schools. We did sign an assurance at the beginning of the year that we would follow that. And of course, if the board ever wanted to change that direction, we would change that direction, but that's what's in place now. I, as recently as Tuesday, yesterday, attended the 1 o'clock meeting with the Navajo Nation, the update, and the numbers across the Navajo Nation for the most part are very encouraging, but they still recommend masks, and we're still following that mandate.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just curious, yeah, I'd like to hear from Lucille.
I've heard that next month, the tribal offices will reopen and they will uplift the mask mandate.
Next month?
Yeah, next month in November, and that's what I heard that President will be doing, and we shall see.
That'd be encouraging.
And I did call up there to the President's office to let him know that, that our students down here are concerned about the mask. Because of all the fairs that took place, a lot of people weren't wearing masks, and so I did bring that up to their attention.
The President did make a statement yesterday that I definitely was interesting to me. He said that they have not found one outbreak related to school activity. Mm-hmm. All outbreaks have been related to home type, family gathering type activities. I thought that was interesting that they have not found one that tied back to schools. So.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's home.
Yeah. Okay, great. The The floor is open for a motion regarding the consent agenda.
I move to accept the consent agenda.
I second. I second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mary and a second by Lucille. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Nelson? Okay, so motion passes 4 in favor. Okay, we go down to the possible action items. The first one is the LEA specific licenses. The floor is open for a motion there.
I move to approve the list of LEA specific licenses that were presented to us earlier today during the discussion items.
Okay, we have a motion by Mary and a second by Nelson. Discussion. In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nelson, I think I saw your lips move on aye. Is that correct? Okay. So motion passes 4 in favor. Portrait of a graduate, next steps. Floor is open for that.
This is where if you wanted to make the motion, or if you wanted to see the change in mission statement, this is where you would make that motion. Or if you wanted to have any action, or if you wanted further steps to go about looking at that. But that is being proposed.
I will move to have, I move to have a process for the board to be involved. If it's our mission statement, the board's, we weren't ever involved in the process of it. And I can see it being the mission statement of a group of people, but it's essentially the board's mission statement. And I didn't evolve with this statement. And I think if it's our statement, I have a hard time being able to bring a statement. Other people, I appreciate so much the work and all the effort and really buy-in with all those who were part of it. But I wasn't part of it, so it's not my board's, as a board member, it's not my mission statement yet. I haven't evolved into the statement, so my motion, well.
The motion, I think that part is discussion.
Okay. My motion is to have a board involvement or process to complete the mission statement.
Okay, motion by Mary to have board involvement relating to the mission statement. And seconded by Nelson. Discussion.
Can I just ask can it be more clear what the involvement would look like, what you'd like to see there?
If it's the district mission statement and we're the top end or one end, I hate to use the word top end because our people, everybody's equally important in this district for the outcome of students. So for lack of a better word, on the top end, if it's our statement, but if district administration has this as a mission statement, then I feel like the board we should create our own. But we haven't had any involvement if this is our statement. This is, something that came to us without us coming along with the process, and it's not our statement.
So would you like some time next board meeting scheduled, not as a presentation, but just as discussion relating to that? Is that how you envision that, or?
Something like the process they went through to bring it to us. But if it's our statement, we ought to be part of developing it.
Be aware, that I've seen mission statements developed in one day. We did it at Monticello High School in one day, a full day one time. But I don't know, and so it can be done that way. I don't know if that's the most effective way, but be aware the process that they went through is literally a 3-year process of meeting. They meet around monthly, so they're meeting quite a bit. And then in the summer, they went up and spent 4 days with the state. So just be aware that they have an amazing amount of time into their efforts there. And if you're looking at something similar, like you said, that's what would be similar. And I don't know if, so I don't know, in 30 minutes you allocate in a board meeting, or 2 hours you allocate in a board meeting. And then be aware also that you've got the challenge of how do you bring the whole organization back into this. You're feeling, I think what I'm hearing you say is, well, I don't feel connected. And I see that. So anyway, I think there's, but.
Yeah, I see it being the district administration and employees' mission statement. But is it the board's mission statement? Is it something we're adopting as our mission statement?
Only if you like it.
So maybe a discussion to answer that question.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yes or no, or if we can't do that today. So.
And again, so can this be seen as already, because it's had the approval administratively, this is the district's paid, people who work full-time for the district, this is the mission statement. But for the board to adopt it as our statement for the district, I think is premature. Unless it's just like,
So
that just resonates and it's wonderful.
I feel like we need something more specific rather than we want to be involved. How does that look to you? What is the next step for the board?
I guess I have some ideas that we could take this mission statement and then spend some time and use that as a starting point, and then make it the school board's mission statement. Or maybe we say this is the district's administrative statement, and we have our own statement that we don't approve that one. We let it stay with the professionals who created this statement.
Well, I think you have the option to not say it's the mission statement. Right now, it's on that chart, and it's going to go, the vision is it's going into every school. And it's going to be a statement that is reflective of the work being done in the San Juan Quest model and the efforts we're doing to put those systems of support and the portrait of a graduate, which we have gathered and we will continue to gather input from our parents and our stakeholders. And all of that effort is encompassed in that statement. The problem we have, we can do that, and that'll be fine. We actually have a mission statement. It's on that wall right there. I'm just here to tell you that mission statement is not doing anything, driving any kind of emotional focus that's empowering in any way your staff. That mission statement is
I
so old and gone that what a mission statement is supposed to do, ironically, is what that statement on that board is starting to do, because it's literally being built from the ground up. You want ownership, you want empowerment in the statement, you want connection. You want to see the statement and say, I have some connection to that statement, I understand what it's saying, and I feel like we've been a part of the process, which I hear you saying, I don't feel a part of the process. And so I respect that very much, but that's why the DLT is like, this is the statement that's going to be very empowering and driving. Maybe the board should look at switching, because that mission statement is basically gone stale. It's not doing its job anymore. And so that's all that's being presented here. The board certainly has the right to say, leave it on there, let it drive the work, and we will work on this statement and bring something back in the future. I just see a little bit of a dilemma where you're competing with what statement's on there and what statement you come up with. Because that statement's a living statement right now, and it's on that document, that chart, and it's going to all schools, and faculties are being brought up and working on it anyway. And so in a perfect world, we probably would have brought the board, got the DLT here more often, or brought the board more to the DLT works thing. I did update on the DLT. I did mention a time or two just what the work they were doing, but in a perfect world, we'd have probably brought that closer so there was more connection here. I recognize that.
So that we could have some
More.
input in where it was going. One of the questions I have is, who is it for? If it's just for the people who help develop it within this district, and all of those people understand it well and where it originated from and how it progressed.
It's for
then
parents as much as them.
That's my question and my point.
That's why
is,
we want to put
then
it.
what do parents, were there any parents part of the development of the mission statement? Or do parents read this and say, oh yeah, that's what I can see that why I pay my tax dollars and send my child to school? Maybe the answer is yes, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's no. But if it's for all parties to unite, we need involvement from everybody before it's complete. But like I say, I don't have a problem with it, but I have a problem with me accepting it as mine, because it's not there yet with it developed all underneath us, and we weren't brought along with the process, and then for us to say this is the school board's mission statement, I'm not there yet.
Okay, I don't see this as a pressing issue. And would anybody like to amend the motion to add some specific guidance there? Or
It's pathetic, I know.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I guess. Okay, 3 in favor, 1 abstention. I see it coming back on next agenda with just the board discussion and with a discussion of, do we want this as our mission statement? And then at that point you can.
Can we have a process with the DLT team where we have some input on something that is ours?
Yeah.
Not just.
The DLT will come back together here in their next scheduled meeting. If you'd like to be a part of that meeting, it happens all day long. They come in and they work for a day where you could come in and we could have maybe a section of it, or if you could come in during that section, and certainly we could facilitate a process there. I don't know that exact day. Julie's gone. She'd know when they're scheduled to reconvene.
But I'm still fine with it being the district's mission statement. But the school board, we should be part of that if we're.
Okay, let's schedule some time to discuss this next meeting, and we need to move on for now.
Okay.
Food bank request. Floor is open.
I move to table the, I don't know if table is the right word. I request, my motion is to have the contract come back to us as an action item next month. And in the, between now and then, to have board members give input to administration about possible changes to the contract that would benefit the school district.
So to bring the changes back next month? Or do they want to give them to us in the meantime as they
That's
reach
what
out?
I think
Okay.
my motion
Okay.
said
I just want to clarify.
to
Motion by Mary, second by Nelson. Discussion.
So I would just clarify, so if we get a recommendation of a change, am I reading this right, that this motion would say, accept that motion as board motion? I mean, can anyone just say what they want in that contract and we do it?
Yeah,
Or is there, or do we need to
I don't feel,
take that and throw it back out, or anyway, how do I
don't
move
feel
forward?
like we're giving administration clear guidance as a board by just saying, okay, if you have a comment, tell that to administration. The administration is saying, well, is this the will of the board? Is it not? Is that accurate?
I would, for clarification, some of the things brought up tonight, I would, for instance, due diligence, the 5,000. Are we worried as a board
probably.
about the time limit on that and whether they lose it in a week or 2 weeks, or if they don't close, they get the money back? I mean, is that something that's an issue to us? If we were selling land on the open market, it definitely would be. I don't know if it is. The board needs to give us direction on this
Right,
case.
so what, my perception is, that should happen, is that we give administration our suggested changes, and then you use your expertise to decide whether or not that goes on, and then you bring your best, your best efforts in a final document, or as a draft document to the board to be considered. So we still use your expertise, but the suggestions, if you don't have the suggestions, how do you improve something without suggestions?
I'm just, yeah.
So-
But we're always trying to do what the board would
well,
like
no.
us to do, and suggestions come from one board member, so it's a little bit tricky on an administrative.
And that's why you make a decision based on the
Yeah.
suggestions.
So,
But as far as the earnest money in this situation, I 100% agree that that's not really an issue for the school district, because we're not going to put it back on we're not going to put it up for sale if for some reason this deal didn't go through. And I have no, they want this land. They're going to go through it and buy this. I don't have any, so I don't think that that's an issue. And I don't intend to drag this on. I'd like to get this done as soon as possible too, because they would like it done and we don't have any reason not to, just that we want to have time to go through a document that we had an hour before our board meeting. And
So-
had it even been on the agenda yesterday, available to any of us board members, I think we would be passing that today. So the intention is not to hold it up. The intention is just to be thorough with the document where we're selling land.
so it's understood that any suggestion to administration is just that, a suggestion.
Okay.
And it's not binding, it's not,
Yes.
administration can use their professional judgment on whether to implement that or not. Understood? Everybody agree with that?
I think that's what my motion indicated.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, 4 in favor, motion passes. Capital plan next step, the floor is open.
Let's
was the discussion on, we're gonna submit our 3 proposals to the state for possible funding. And then the possibility of moving forward with some additional steps at BES if you would like to, such as finding out what would be the cost of an assessment. We could do more of an official RPI or
RFP.
RFP. I'm talking sports here. Anyway, RFP, and find out exactly what the cost is for, what other, because we really have not, we got one estimate. We could do more. Anyway, if the board is interested in taking some of those initial steps, we do feel it would be very helpful for us to move kind of beyond some of these roadblocks where we just have hit a wall that we don't know which way to go around it.
And can I add to that too, just because of like the interesting timelines that we're facing right now, we will submit these applications, and we intend to submit the application for that specific BES project as a rebuild project, because that was the direction we kind of received from our last board meeting, and we do have a cost estimate as well to rebuild it. So the applications are received by the panel in November. In December, it goes to the State Board of Education. Well, I might be getting my timeline. In December, the panel approves it, and then in January, the State Board of Education finalizes the panel's recommendation. So in January, we would know if we would be receiving funding to build an elementary school. If we were to receive that funding, I don't think there would be any reason to move forward with spending the money.
Exactly.
And this process to even get to there wouldn't even play out before that probably. But if we could receive some direction from the board on, at that point in January, if it's clear from the panel and State Board of Education's ruling that we're way down the list as far as priorities go for some of these projects, to move forward with an assessment of that magnitude from an architectural firm. So even if, does that make sense?
So you're saying we don't need to make that decision right now? Is that how I understand that?
Yeah, I think you could certainly wait and see, but I think you need to be answering the question, so we don't need to take 2 or 3 months. If in the event January we don't get funding for PES, we know which way we're going, and we don't take 2 or 3 months at that point. But yes, we will wait till after January before we see.
Actually submit and spend the funds, but if we could start moving on.
We can do an RFP and
preparing an RFP process can take a while to prepare and draft, but.
Just on the surface, Blanding Elementary looks like a fairly good building to me. And it may be worth a remodel, but who knows what profession.
It's got a great location.
Okay. I haven't heard a motion on this.
Nope.
I move to approve the capital plan development for Blanding Elementary School to use the 3
applications, or
the 3 applications.
Oh, I see what you're asking.
So we plan on submitting those 3 applications, but
we don't need, right?
I think if you were to take a motion right now, you would make a motion to allow an RFP to be constructed, and possibly even at least constructed and brought back to the board and you developed, and you could then see what the RFP is asking for. Then maybe in November, December, we actually could cast our net out and see what the costs are. That does not commit us to spending the money. If we find out, and then in January, we find out whether or not we're funded, now we already have the idea of what companies are willing to pay what it's gonna cost us, and that way we're ready to move with something. So I think the motion, if you were to make, if I were to recommend a motion, you would make a motion to allow the work for an RFP to begin on determining working with those who are properly certified to determine BES, whether it's worthy of a remodel or if it should be a rebuild.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if that was worded
No, that-
right, but
that-
that's what.
A
So
lot
let me
sense
try
after
this
all our
again.
discussions. Was-
I move to approve Landing Elementary School to allow RFB Construction to work to begin on to remodel or rebuild.
Yep.
Second motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Lucille and a second by Mary. The essence of the motion is to proceed with an RFP regarding rebuild or remodel Landing Elementary. Discussion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 4 in favor. School land trust deadline dates. Floor's open.
Let's see. I move to accept the school land trust deadline dates that have been submitted to us.
Motion by Mary, second by Nelson. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 4 in favor. Next item is future ESSER and ARP CARES Act fund expenditures.
I second.
A motion by Nelson, a second by Lucille.
So I have a question about, we talked about the amounts that are left over. And so is the recommendation to use all of that stipend, or we didn't talk numbers at all? So that's, I realized that as we were starting into this action item.
I would propose a 750 or a 2%, whichever is higher for all employees. That was very similar to last spring. It was just, it was 1.5% or 500. And it was well received by classified and certified. When we went to the set amount and went much lower, I received complaints from both certified and classified in areas. So I felt like that was the better way to go, and that's what I would recommend.
Do you have the numbers on that, what that total is?
Yeah.
I think it's actually in the spreadsheet.
No, I actually, yeah. Took care of me.
So that is kind of a moving target a little bit with those percentages and hiring, but I think we would be 600, and between both the benefits and salary be around 620,000 in that ballpark.
Which we have about, how much between the two funds do we have carryover? We said about
Around $1 million
Like
between the
million.
two.
So,
Other questions or comments?
So yeah, it wasn't clarified in the motion, like the amount of the stipend. I would kind of leave that up to, I mean, I don't know if that's just up to your board's interpretation. For us as administration to say, as long as it's in the budget, kind of like what superintendent mentioned earlier, that would be allowed in there. Or do we want to amend that motion to specify amount, or just to say, yeah, this is this is approved, a stipend is approved, and the administration will handle the details of it.
And you know what I just said we would recommend.
Talked about,
Mhm.
so either way is probably fine.
Either way is fine.
I would like an amended motion with amounts, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I said.
Okay, we have a motion to amend the motion.
A second the motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Nelson? Okay, sorry, I wasn't looking at you and didn't hear anything. Okay, so we're back to the amended motion now. Any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Mary, did you vote on that?
I
couldn't
did.
hear you. Aye?
Aye, yes.
Okay, so motion passes 4 in favor. And last is White Horse High School winter activity schedule.
I motion to approve White Horse High School winter activity schedule and 150-mile request.
Second the motion.
Motion by Lucille, second by Mary. Discussion on that. So just to clarify, that's everything that was submitted for White Horse?
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
At the time.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes 4 in favor. That's it for the action items. Superintendent, information items, please.
Well, I have the next board meeting, November 9th, right here, district office and virtual. I probably would add that they gave us all of the information at our regional meeting for our January conference, so just make sure you are, if you're planning on going, reserving the January 5th, 6th, and 7th dates, and work with Eva. Eva, they did say the motel is open now for reservations, so if you want to start for January, okay, I'll get this to you. And that's all I have for information items.
Okay, that takes us to the end of our agenda, so the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.